Hello, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to today's edition of the Our America channel. My name is Thornton Prayer. I'm a citizen, a patriot, and I care very deeply about our country. Today, I want to talk about just the general direction of what's going on in our country and the world for that matter. See, I study human history. You know, I'm not an expert or an academic or anything like that, but I know some general trends. And it seems like every, I don't know, 3 or 4 generations, there are like things get really, really hot and heavy. They get really disruptive. I mean, if you go back, over the 20th century, you had that period of time from, let's say, excuse me, 1914 to 1945, the two world wars and things of that nature. In the United States, we had during the 1960s all the big social movements, the civil rights movement, the women's movement, and things of that nature. And things got kind of hot and heavy then. So, in a way, we're kind of due here in the United States because, in relative terms, I'm not saying things were entirely peaceful from, let's say, the 70s on till today. Things were pretty quiet in relative terms, but now they're starting to get kind of chaotic again. This is what tends to happen. This is just sort of the cycles of human history. You heard the saying about, attributed to Mark Twain, saying, history doesn't repeat, but it often rhymes. And so I think we're in one of those rhyming periods where things are going to get hot and heavy. And when I say hot and heavy, there's a lot of heat, there's a lot of noise, there's a lot of pain and drama that's going on. I'm not even trying to say that to downplay it. I'm simply saying that that's what's happening. A lot of people have said, and I agree with this, that between the 9/11 terrorist attacks and the great financial crisis, things really got torqued in a way as far as what's happening economically, socially, and politically. And that's understandable. So now the thing I would say that we have to consider is that do we want to allow ourselves to get caught up in the waves of all of that and get swept along into some things that could be very, very bad and very dangerous? Or are we willing as individuals, and as a society to stand our ground, meaning mentally, emotionally, and so on, and not let these forces hijack us and lead us to do some very, very dangerous things? Some people, for example, have said that why did the German people, the German nation back in the 1930s, vote in the Nazis? Because the Nazis got voted in. They didn't take over militarily. They did things through what was ostensibly a democracy. But people who were, I say, pretty intelligent about these sorts of things, about the history of that time, said that, look, the German people had endured a lot over the prior 15 years or so. They had lost World War One. Then they were basically in some ways screwed by the Allied forces, the victorious forces, some of the things that they had to do. Then they went through this massive hyperinflation period in the early part of the 1920s. And then the Great Depression hit. And when things are really chaotic, economically, politically, and socially, extremist voices can take advantage of the situation and turn things their way. And my concern is that because things are getting chaotic, because there's a lot of uncertainty in this world, there are a lot of forces out there, a lot of individuals who want to turn things to their advantage, but not in the service of our country. And that's what I'm saying is that, if you and I are willing to not allow ourselves to be swept along by that kind of stuff, then we have the power to do something better and to do something different. Because what I can tell you, and this is what I'm saying, is that there are demagogues all over the place. We're saying how, again, pointing fingers, blaming these people, blaming those people, and they have all the answers and all the solutions. That's a lie. No one has all the answers and all the solutions. What we have to do, in my opinion, is to be willing, like I said, not to get caught up in all the societal and political upset and drama. And as conscious, intelligent beings who are willing to set aside our views about things as being, quote unquote, the truth, and to see, like, well, what can I do in order to make things better for all of us? Now, I know a lot of people, when things are in the situation that we're in right now, this is the last thing people want to do. I know some of you might say, if you're watching this and listening to this, and say, this guy's nuts. He doesn't know what he's talking about, or worse, he's part of the problem. Well, I mean, if you believe that, I can't stop you, and I'm not going to try. But what I'm asking you to consider, to slow down, and to start asking yourself, what am I doing here? Am I going to be a slave to what I hear some politicians say? Am I going to be a slave to what people say on Facebook and Twitter? Am I going to be a slave to what my emotional waves are and mental waves are? Or am I going to be a powerful, conscious person and to try to stay still in a sense and be able to examine and say, I'm willing to do what's right on behalf of this country, not what makes me feel good, or not to run around in fear. Because fear will destroy everything. You remember what FDR said when he was inaugurated the first time after the 1932 elections, and that was that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. When I was younger and I first heard that didn't make any sense to me. I was a kid. But as I got older and started thinking about it, and of course trying to understand things that's going on, what he was saying is that if we allowed fear, and this was in the Great Depression, of course, after the 1929 stock market crash, that a lot of people were giving in to despair. And because people were giving in to despair, various extremist forces were starting to exploit the situation. And as the president, he wasn't going to allow doing that. He was asking the American populace to not give in to fear. I'm asking you to do the same thing. Not to give in to fear. Not to give in to righteousness. Not to give in to pain or unconsciousness. Because that's when we become dangerous. We become dangerous to ourselves and we become dangerous to each other. I would argue that the whole opioid epidemic that's going on today is that a lot of people are in a lot of pain. And I understand why. People don't know what's happening. People don't have a stable job situation like they had before. I get it. I've been there. I've seen it happen over and over again in a lot of different places, and I hear it all the time. But I'm saying that if you have the mental and the emotional fortitude and the strength and the power to not allow these things to dominate you, you can't be dominated by politicians and what's happening on social media either in order to do what's in service of our country. And let me be clear about this. When I say in service of our country, I don't mean give in to being at the subservience of the government. I'm not saying that either. I don't believe in government tyranny as much as anybody else. In a perfect world, we wouldn't need a government. We're not perfect, so we need government, okay? So the question is are we going to allow ourselves to get all hyped up and jacked up about how the government's screwing us this and the government's screwing us this, and take responsibility to slow down and to pay attention and to be strong enough as individuals and as a society in order to serve what's going to benefit the common good and the greater good. I'll end with this. I welcome your thoughts and comments below. This is today's edition of the Our America channel. Thank you for watching.